What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we've got a couple new logos cards to be looking at. Now, we've only got a couple cards to be looking at, and I did consider waiting till we had some more logos cards to look at, and then I thought, no, these cards, one of them's a key cheat for goodness sake. They look too gosh darned exciting to be waiting any longer to have a look at. As always, I have looked at all the new cards so far that have been revealed from Worlds Collide, so do make sure that you check out all the links in the description. There are many of them there. But we've got to start today, ladies and gentlemen, with Keyforge. Now, I'll be honest with you, I did actually hear about this card a while ago. There was a stream at Gen Con where Brad played and he actually had this card in his deck. And he told us about Keyforge. But we had no image and it was a bit awkward and people were like, did we hear it correctly? It was too awkward, ladies and gentlemen. So we ignored it until now, but now we got a nice clear image. It's time to have a chat about it. It is an action card. It gives you an amber bonus. And it reads, when you play, you may forge a key at plus 10 current cost, reduced by 1 amber for each card in your hand. Well, this, ladies and gentlemen, is absolutely wonderful. Now, straight off the bat, we might as well go for the obvious comparison here. This is Key Abduction. This is definitely Key Abduction, a card which was in Call of the Archons and Age of Ascension, but will definitely not be in Worlds Collide, because Mars aren't in Worlds Collide. And Key Abduction also gives an amber bonus. And Key Abduction lets you forge at plus 9 current cost, reduced by 1 for each card in your hand, so it costs 1 less to forge. And when you play it, you return each Mars creature to its owner's hand, which can be disruptive for your opponent, but for you, it's putting extra creatures in your hand, which means more cards in hand, which means that you are going to have an easier time forging a key. So hang on a second, how can we possibly have Keyforge here that doesn't put extra cards in your hand when you play it and costs 1 extra amber / card in hand in order to forge a key? How can that possibly be competitive? And the reason very simply is, Logos is a house that draws. Logos is a house with phenomenal draw power by a wide margin, the very best in the game. In terms of the houses we've seen. Even Saurian and the Grand Star Republic can't even hold a candle. That's going to be funny when you see the next card. So frankly, ladies and gentlemen, it's doable, but I think more so than a lot of cards, this is really going to depend on the deck that you draw. Key Abduction, as long as you've got a few Mars creatures, you've got a decent chance here. But this, you've got to have some draw. Now, there's one other thing Logos are really good at. It's archiving. That'll always help. More on that in a moment. So one of the cards I really like, and as always, we do not know which of these cards are going to be in Worlds Collide. They're just examples for now. Professor Sutterkin. A 2-power creature without elusive. It's very weak. But when you reap, you draw a card for each friendly Logos creature. Not each friendly ready Logos creature. Each friendly Logos creature. Yeah, in the right deck, that can draw you a huge amount of cards. I mean, we've seen Time Traveler in both the expansions so far. When you play it, it draws you 2 cards. That's pretty good. Back in Call of the Archons, we had Quixo the Adventurer that had a fight skill that let you draw a card. And we had Doc Bugden that, when you reaped, allowed you to draw a card. We saw Phyla the Researcher in Age of Ascension, and when you put a creature now next to Phyla the Researcher, you get to draw a card. And all of these things are going to help. Really here, the aim is to have 16 cards in hand. If you've got 16 cards in hand, you forge a key for 0 amber, and then hopefully either you forge a key to begin your turn, get 16 cards in hand, forge again, or you forge a key without spending your amber, and then next turn you forge another key. And the way we've seen this done really successfully with Mars is use cards like Martian Generosity or Battlefleet, which are the best draw cards that Mars has. Now, they're both very extreme draw cards. Martian Generosity, get rid of all your amber, draw cards equal to double that number. And Battlefleet, show your hand, or as many Mars cards from your hand as you like, and draw 1 for each card. We saw somebody win a Vault Tour with double Battlefleet key abduction because they revealed a bunch of cards with Battlefleet and then they drew a bunch and one of them was a Battlefleet, so they showed the same cards again plus one or two more, drew a bunch more cards, key abduction for the win. We saw Aurora do this at the Vault Tour in Poland using Martian Generosity. That's what you need to do here. And Logos have had the cards in the past to do it. And we've already seen some good Logos draw cards from Worlds Collide so far. Babbling Bibliophile draws 2 cards when you reap. Academy Training gives a creature reap, draw a card, which I suppose would make Babbling Bibliophile draw 3 cards when it reaps. That's pretty good. But the other thing that Logos has in spades is archiving. When you archive, you put a card in your archive at the beginning of your turn. You may choose to either pick up all of your archive or none of your archive. It's very much an all or nothing thing. So here, if you can just build up a really large archive, preferably including this, then your turn begins, you pick up all of your cards, you've now got 16 or more cards in hand, including Dataforge, and you just forge a key right there and then to begin your turn, and then you work on getting a bunch of amber to forge a key next turn if you haven't already won the game. That's kind of the point here. Draw cards and archiving. That's what you need. If you're going to make a card like Dataforge work, you need to try and build up an archive so you can start your turn and draw a bunch of cards. Extra cards. Well, that's not really drawing, but it's the same kind of thing. And you need draw power. And those are the 2 things that Logos does absolutely spectacularly, which makes Dataforge a perfect key cheat card for Logos decks. Now, we have actually seen a bunch of archiving in this set already as well. We've already seen a bunch of cards that could provide archiving. Tortor Vapors, when you play it, you draw 2 cards. That's quite nice. And then you archive a card. That's going to help, ladies and gentlemen. That's really going to help. Eddie is a creature, and when you play it, you archive a card, and your opponent's keys cost +1 amber for each card in your archives. Now, that's ridiculous here, because essentially you can use Eddie, try and build up a big archive, all of a sudden your opponent's keys cost a lot more, and then you can use Dataforge to forge a key for free. Dataforge is not a card that is always going to be good in decks. There are going to be plenty of decks where this pops up and there's not enough draw and there's not enough archiving, and you're just not getting enough cards in hand to make this worth playing. But there are going to be some decks out there where all of a sudden Logos are going back to their old tricks, and they're drawing a whole bunch of cards, and they're archiving a whole bunch of cards. And in those decks, this is going to be amazing. Hey, speaking of draw power, there is another Logos card we need to have a bit of a chat about in today's video. And it is Candle Unit. Now, I'm sure it's pronounced slightly differently. I'm just calling it Candle Unit. Feel free to give me your pronunciation in the comment section. For now, I'm calling it Candle Unit. It is a creature. It is a robot. It has 5 power. It has 1 armor. And it's got a phenomenal permanent skill. After an enemy creature reaps, draw a card. That's crazy. That's amazing. And look, we've seen a bunch of cards kind of similar to this in it either stops your opponent reaping or at the very least disincentivizes them reaping. We saw most of these honestly coming around in Age of Ascension. We saw stuff like, if we stick in Logos for a minute, Pip Pip, which when an enemy creature reaped, you stun it. One of my favorites we saw was Amber Spine Mongrel, which basically said, when your opponent reaps, you also gain an amber, which was kind of funny. I love that card. We saw Amber Imp, after a creature reaps, stun it. And then we saw Bloodshard Imp, this was also in this, which after a creature reaps, its controller must sacrifice it. And both of those, incidentally, are double-sided. They are both player. They're not just your opponent. Well, this, every time an enemy creature reaps, you draw a card. So if you're against a deck that wants to reap a lot, you're drawing a lot of cards. The downside is, if your opponent's reaping a lot, they're going to be getting close to forging a key. So you are going to need some kind of amber control here to stop them forging a key. Eddie would do nicely. Otherwise, you're going to draw a lot of cards and it's not going to be worth it. Clearly, this is the card that works beautifully with Dataforge. That should be fairly obvious at this stage. And it's even got an action unless you capture an amber, which is a little bit of amber control. It's not perfect, it's not amazing, it's not loads, but it's a lot. Certainly, C.A.E.N.D.L.E unit is going to be phenomenal when you combine it with Dataforge. I think that's fairly obvious, but it's just general good draw power. Dataforge is great. Now, I know Logos has had a key cheating card. Logos in Age of Ascension had Redacted, but Redacted was a super exciting, interesting card on the face of it that as soon as you read it, you realise it's never going to work. If you draw it on your first Logos turn, which is not always going to happen, and your opponent plays no artifact control at all, you get to forge a key on your 5th Logos turn, which is often not even going to happen. This, ladies and gentlemen, this is the key cheating card that Logos has been waiting for. I'm in love, but I'd like to know what you think, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Me nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, that's where we talk about games, and do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel and get bonus pods, and it's fun and all that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.